I'm Joe Chamberlain, the Executive Director of the Coastside Land Trust located in Half Moon Bay, California. We are delighted to be able to present a series of webinars, and one of those we're doing today has to do with a very serious topic, and that is how we're going to help the climate. And carbon sequestration is becoming one of the most important things that open space can do. We manage 176 acres of open space here along the coast, and we are working very hard to increase our carbon sequestration. One of the projects or programs that we have is managed by our volunteer, Sarah Polgar, and she is doing programs that encourage restoration and research on our properties. So we have a fun webinar coming up from a young person who is a member of the Advanced Habitat Stewardship Program. I'd like to thank you for your continued support of our organization, making it possible for us to continue to present these webinars. Thank you, and we look forward to your continued participation and support. A copy of this webinar will be sent to you via email later in the day or tomorrow. It will also be posted on our website if you'd like to share it with your friends and colleagues. The process we'll go through today is I will introduce our speaker. She will do her presentation, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So please don't hesitate to jump in with any of your questions that remain after her or during her presentation. We are just delighted to have a young person with us. Her name is Jasmine Standez, and she is a local resident here, and she is a member of the as was selected for, and maybe she'll share with us how she was selected to be a youth climate ambassador in the leadership program, and she has funding through this. And I've known Jasmine for many years, and she's just become quite a wonderful scientist in her own way. So Jasmine, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So hi, I'm Jasmine. I really was interested in working with Coastside Land Trust because I love being in nature. I spend so much time outside with my family, and it's just really something I love. I've been working volunteering for Coastside Land Trust since about 8th grade. And so I was really excited to have an opportunity to get to do my own restoration with them. So the way I was able to do this was I was accepted to be part of the Youth Climate Ambassador program. You submit an application to them, you have to write an essay and answer some other questions, and I was fortunate enough to get selected. And it was created to help educate young people on climate change and to give them an opportunity to make a difference. It's run through the San Mateo Office of Sustainability, and it's a year-long program. The first 6 months are devoted to teaching the members about climate change and its impact on the environment and people. And then the next 6 months, we all got to create a project that helps to fight climate change. We're funded and mentored, and we're also funded and mentored by all the wonderful people at YCA who run this program. I created a project working with 3 amazing partners, Alex, Brianna, and Tyler, and they all live in Half Moon Bay and go to the high school here just like I do. Alex is in my grade, and Brianna and Tyler are seniors graduating this year. I was so lucky to be able to get to work with them because they're just so awesome. That's me in the picture there. Okay, so what is carbon sequestration? Carbon sequestration is the process of capturing and storing carbon and other greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. But a lot of the time when people think about carbon sequestration, they jump straight to trees and other plants, just kind of green things you see above ground. What they don't realize is while plants do help store carbon, there's much more potential to store carbon in the soil. So here's the diagram I made kind of to help explain what carbon sequestration is. So it starts with plants capturing carbon dioxide um, in their photosynthesis process. This creates carbohydrates or energy that help feed soil microbes in the roots. And when the roots and the various microbes die, they trap carbon deep in the soil. When there are more roots in a plant, they create more organic matter underground, and so when they decompose, they trap more carbon. Um, Carbon dioxide is also released by some of these microbes, which is reabsorbed by the plant, and um, oxygen is released as a byproduct of photosynthesis. So carbon sequestration happens naturally, but when the soil is overworked, it reduces the amount of carbon that can be stored. Healthy soil is not only important to help reduce greenhouse gases, but it also feeds us because we need healthy soil to farm. In the soil, there's a huge amount of microorganisms that help to capture greenhouse gases, as well as the many root systems that are vital to the life we see above soil. When soil is stripped of its organisms and nutrients, which happens through aggressive farming tactics, it can lead to disaster. So here is an example of healthy soil. It has biological activity and good carbon content. This supports more growth in the soil, including root growth, which is very important to store carbon. This also supports microorganisms, which help to add nitrogen and carbon to the soil, which are both greenhouse gases, so it's kind of being taken out of the atmosphere. You can see this strong root system here, and the soil is staying together. Also, it's not very dry because when there's more carbon in the soil, it actually helps to keep it more moist. This is an example of why soil health is so important. The dust will happen because farmers didn't properly take care of their soil. Excessive soil tilling and changes in rainfall led to the dust bowl. Okay, so why is this important? So first of all, there's much more storage space for carbon in the soil than basically anywhere else on land. Also, carbon sequestration is one of the best ways to reduce greenhouse gases in the atmosphere that we know of and know how to do right now. Also, healthy soil benefits not only the environment, but farmers and everyone else, because it's really important to have solutions to climate change that benefit people in the short term, because often solutions to climate change require sacrifice from those people, which makes it less likely to follow through. Okay, so where did I do this project? This project is in Half Moon Bay in an open space called Wavecrest. Some of you probably spend time walking along the bluff tops. And I really wanted to do this project here because I love this space. It's one of my favorite places in Half Moon Bay. So for some background, here's a picture from 1965. Here's the Highway 1 here for some perspective on where this is really. And then you can see there's actually a lot of farming that happened in Wavecrest for a long time. So a lot of this is farming. And then right here, you can see a landfill that is now covered. And then here is Wavecrest now. So it's conservation land on and around the bluff tops. And so here's right next to the Seymour Bridge is kind of where the landfill used to be. You can see there's less farming now. And I think that one really important thing to recognize is that Wavecrest isn't perfect. It's been meddled with by humans for a really long time. And so it's kind of changed how Wavecrest functions. Okay, so here's this circle shows the general area where my project is. It's much smaller than this, but just kind of to give a general idea. Okay, so what is a restoration? There's kind of two different definitions. The first one is restoring an area to the way it was before human disturbance. And the second one is restoring an area to create better functionality in the area. An example of this would be replacing invasive plants with native plants to help make the soil healthier. So what's the purpose of a restoration? I think that's kind of important. The first one is diversity. You want to increase the diversity of an area when you're doing a restoration. You also want to try to stop invasive species takeover, and you want to benefit and This also helps to benefit native plants and animals in the area. You also want to make sure the ecosystem is functioning better when you're doing your restoration. Okay, so what makes restorations difficult? I think that a lot of time restorations become much more difficult than previously like you thought originally. So I think the biggest thing that makes them hard is kind of idea of better functionality versus restoring an area to the exact way it was before. And I think that it's better to make it's better to make a space better than it used to be than make it perfect. Because if we don't try to make a difference, it's not like we're just going to prevent progress in the future. Because if we're scared to do something without it working out exactly the way we want it to, then it's kind of pointless. And restorations don't always go as we plan. So I kind of talked about invasive plants, and here's and this is one of the biggest reasons why invasive plants are bad is because they can create a monoculture. A monoculture is basically when a single species takes over an area, and it really decreases the diversity of that space. This is kind of bad because, I mean, you can see how all these plants are kind of like they're all the same height, all the same type of plant. And so they kind of really only support a certain type of animal or certain other like organisms in the area, which is not very good. Because if there's changes, then, it makes it much more difficult for all the animals to survive. So this is my kind of the concept of my project. So one thing that's really important to improve carbon sequestration in an area is deep rooting plants. They have more space for carbon sequestration because their roots just create more space for carbon sequestration to occur within. I wanted to try to find what native perennial deep rooting plants would survive in the area. Perennial plants are important because they stay around for much longer, so they can help to store carbon for longer. The purpose of this project was not to find out if carbon sequestration works. We know it works and have a lot of scientific proof showing that it does. I just wanted to find what plants could help to sequester carbon. Testing for carbon increase is also really difficult. It's kind of unreliable and it takes a really long time, so it was kind of not feasible for my project. If I was truly trying to maximize carbon sequestration, I might have used plants that were not native to the area, but because I am working with Coastside Land Trust on the project, I have to respect and prioritize what they want me to do when doing a restoration. Even if the best possible way to sequester carbon involved plants I didn't use, I have to make sure I am following what the Land Trust wants because they are the landowner. So this is like my method for my restoration. This is exactly like my plan that I created before I did anything. So my first step was to collect the plants I needed from the nursery. The second one was to weed out the invasive plants from the area and lay down the tarp to solarize. This huge shout out to all the CLT volunteers who did most of this weeding. I can't even imagine how much work that must have been. I actually was able to just work from I didn't have to lay down this tarp and do all this extra work. So it was really nice to have this ready to plant in. So the third step was then to remove the tarp to plant. And then planting we started with bringing in mulch and cardboard and then laying out the cardboard and cutting holes for the plants and then digging holes for the plants and planting them, covering everything in mulch and then watering. And then finally, just watching and seeing what plants survived. Okay. So this is kind of how my project ended up going, actually. So we started off with the plant collection. I got to work with the lovely Susan Boyer. She helped me pick out the plants that we thought would do the best in the area. I ended up with around, I think, 30 plants and then 7 different types of plants. So she helped me so much with this step because I wasn't really sure what would be the best for the area. So the next was weeding. This was probably the most painful part of the process because teasel and bristly oxtongue are not plants that you want to mess with. They're very prickly. And so So one thing about this, like that I noticed when I was pulling these out, is they actually have relatively deep root systems. And so although they do have deeper root systems, which is beneficial for carbon sequestration, they are invasive, which can create a monoculture, and which therefore impacts just the environment poorly. And they also have taproots, which are not as good as the fibrous roots that other plants have. They're also biennials, so they only stay around for about 2 years, which isn't good as a perennial. So I just kind of mentioned this, but so what is a taproot? A taproot is basically one big root with some smaller offshoots. And another example of this would be like a carrot. So you have like one really big root and there's a couple like smaller roots. Branching, they're not as good for carbon sequestration because you can see how there's not very much roots, like space in these roots. It's just kind of one root. Branching roots are much better because they are made from more than one root, so they have more space for biological activity and sequestration. There are also more roots from the branching roots that will die and store carbon. A lot of plants I ended up having, like planting in the end, have deep branching roots. So here's the planting process. You can see here, I'm cutting a hole to plant one of these plants in. We used cardboard to help to cover the ground and help prevent weeds from growing around the plants, and then mulch to keep the cardboard from blowing away. The mulch also helps to cover the plants because the ground is a little bit hard to dig in, so you didn't have to like dig a complete hole. And then here's a picture of the finished site. So here are some pictures of the plants that did really well. I was actually really surprised because a lot of them did quite much better than I thought. I honestly thought that none of them were going to survive. So it was really exciting to see how many did well. So the first one was this gum plant. This one got huge. I was so surprised because I came to take these pictures like 3 weeks ago or so. And all these plants had got so many of these plants had gotten so big, and it was really exciting to see. And then we have coyote brush. This one's actually around the coast a lot, so I wasn't super surprised, like on the bluff tops especially. So I wasn't super surprised to see that it was doing well, but it was really exciting to see that I didn't kill it. Then we have Yaro. The Yaro got enormous. I was really, again, really surprised at how big it got. Here's also, there's a little bug that photobombed my picture here. So that was kind of funny. And then there's soap plant. I wasn't surprised that this one did well because this one lives all around on the bluff tops, but it was really exciting to see it growing so much. And then these deadlias didn't grow very much, but they're not dead, so I consider that a win. And then seaside daisy. Honestly, I think seaside daisy is probably my favorite coastside plant. It creates these super cute pink flowers, and they're just the most adorable things ever, and I love them. Another plant that did really well was the irises that I planted. I already used a picture of them, so I didn't want to add the same picture later. Okay, so outcomes and takeaways of this whole restoration, I guess. So first of all, restorations are quite difficult. They're it was a lot more harder than I thought it would be, but I think that it was a really great experience to have. Another thing I learned was that restorations in general, they're kind of an ongoing process. It's not just like a one and done thing where you just put the plants in the ground. You're like, oh, okay, it's over. You have to go back and weed and just make, check on your plants and see how they're doing. So that's really important to recognize. I think another thing I kind of learned was that luck plays a huge part in how a restoration goes. When I was planting, it was actually raining. And so I think that helps the plant survive so much, and it made it easier to dig in the ground. So I think that if it hadn't have rained, I think that the restoration might have gone very differently. Also, one of the bigger takeaways, I think, was just learning what plants survived in the area. I kind of talked about those. And then the ones that didn't, I also planted seep monkey flower and aster, and they did not do well at all. I think they're all dead. But I think all the other ones did well, so that was exciting. And then Another important thing I think that kind of good to think about when doing a restoration is that kind of you're trying to shift towards diversity, because instead of like, if you're weeding an area to just get rid of invasive plants, it's really important to like have something to put there in its place, because if you don't, they're just going to come back and it's kind of just pointless work. So I think it's really important to take advantage of like all the time that people spend like trying to remove these invasive plants on the coast side and putting in some plants that are better for the environment or the ecosystem. Okay, and then it's just some keys to success that I think were important in planting this location. The first one was a diverse selection of plants. I think that a lot of just picking different plants was really important, because if you just like, oh, this one is definitely going to do the best, and then it doesn't, like, you're not going to have you're not going to have as much success in the area. And I think that a lot of the plants I didn't think were going to do as well actually did quite well. So I think that it's important to make sure you have lots of different plants. And then I think another thing that really, really helped my restoration succeed was the cardboard and mulch process. And this was really important because, first of all, the cardboard and mulch both helped to keep the weeds away while the plants were kind of getting used to the soil and growing. And second of all, they help to trap moisture. And the coast isn't, it's kind of dry a lot of the time. Like, it's foggy, but there's not that much rain. And so I think having the cardboard and mulch there to kind of keep some of the moisture in around the plants really helped them do better and give them time to get used to soil and grow before they, so that they could survive. And then another thing is watching the forecast. I think that the rain that I got basically saved my restoration. And so if you have the opportunity to, I would recommend planting in the rain, which is miserable, but it helps a lot because the soil is a lot softer, so you can dig holes faster, and the plants get that extra water that you might not be able to bring in to them if you're doing it in an area that's difficult. I actually, like the one thing that I did that I think is harder on a bigger scale restoration is I was able to bring in water because I live super close, and there's a street kind of close to my restoration site. So I just brought in 2 5-gallon containers of water. I carried them in, and we just watered all of the plants when we finished planting them, just to help them out a little bit. So I think that probably also helped too. Okay. So I just want to like give I have so many thank yous because I think that without all the help from all these people, this restoration and I think this kind of webinar would not have been possible. So first of all, I want to thank Zoe Van Duvenbode, the San Mateo Office of Sustainability, and everyone else from YCA who helped to fund and mentor me like as to like how to do this project. It was super helpful. And then Kate Dickey for helping me kind of organize the webinar and kind of explain how all this stuff works. And then Susan Boyer with the State Parks Native Plant Nursery. She helped me pick out all my plants and just gave me a lot of advice towards doing how to do my restoration. She was the one who gave me the idea of doing the mulch and cardboard. And I think that was super, super important to my project. And then my project partners, Alex Coran, Brianna Johnson, and Tyler Autumn, they all helped me so much finish this project. Like, without them, I would not have been able to do this. And so I'm super thankful to them. And then Sarah, who basically, she helped me like create my webinar. She taught me like how to do everything, kind of explained the basics of restorations to me. And it was so helpful, just everything. She was always there. And then Coastside Land Trust, of course, because they help. I got to work on their land, and just they gave me this great opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, Jasmine, for sharing this incredible presentation. I think we are all learning. We're lucky enough to get to watch a little bit of Jasmine's run through, and we both Joe Chamberlain and I both went, wow, we learned a lot from this presentation. So thank you for sharing this with the community. We have a few, I'd love to share a few questions with you, if that's all right, or ask you a couple of questions. And for those of you who are joining us Hello. And we have Sarah Polgar, who is the lead for the Advanced Habitat, our Oz program, which is the Advanced Habitat Stewardship for the Coastside Land Trust. She's going to be joining us for questions and answers. And she also served as the mentor for Jasmine in this project. So we'll welcome Sarah. I think she's actually sort of sitting further back in the woods.
Lurking in the back.
Back.
All right. Here, come here, you guys.
So the first question is, if you were going to do this project on a bigger scale, what do you think you'd need to do differently? And what do you think you'd do the same?
I think if I were to do this on a bigger scale, I think it would be first like really important to have more people to just be able to do it. I think because even with 4 people working like to do all the stuff, it was difficult. I think planting things is a lot of work. So I think I need more people, and I think also just like more planning kind of regarding like just getting everything in, because I think the bigger something is, the longer it's going to take. And so I think that more planning. And I think then what I keep the same is probably like the plants I used in general, because most of them did really well. And then the process I followed, I think, especially with the cardboard and mulching for the restoration, worked really, really well. So I think that I would keep those things the same.
And building on that, if someone else, this is going to inspire other folks. So building off of that, what would you like to see moving forward with other students, if they were to take your project from where you just finished it, kind of moving forward? What would you like to see happening?
Honestly, I think it would just be really exciting to see other people like just outside working on something in nature. Like, I mean, maybe working like to make my site larger, or just on another site to just kind of make it bigger, because I think it's just really important to get people out there, you know?
Awesome. Yeah. Another question is sort of what was surprising for you? It was something that you learned that was surprising for you, because you were talking about, you have made such an astute observation, which is that idea of sort of the enemy of good is perfect, right? And so were there things that surprised you, or things that you learned, or times where you went, oh, I would have, this happened, and you kind of had to readjust yourself to that?
I think that honestly, probably the 2 biggest like difficulties throughout the project. The first one was COVID, because when I started this, I actually didn't have to worry about COVID. It was like before that was a thing, and so having to adjust my project to like work with my partners, especially like in person, that was really difficult, I think. And then just I think adjusting to that, and also just like kind of learning what to do in the moment, I guess, because I didn't really know what I was doing. So I think that I think just doing the whole thing, I learned a lot as to like how restorations work, I guess.
Did you have this idea when you joined the Youth Climate Action group? Did you have an idea of kind of what you wanted to be doing from the beginning, or did you feel sort of inspired by what you had learned and then took it because you loved this place, because you live so close to this place, because you've already been doing work there? So which direction did it come from, the project?
When I applied, I think that I wanted to do a restoration because I'd already been working with Coastside Land Trust. I think that's why I applied, was like, oh my gosh, this is a great opportunity to learn more about climate change, and they're going to help me do this project that I've been wanting to do, And so that was really exciting. I was like, oh my gosh, maybe if I get into this, I can do this restoration that I've been wanting to do, because I love working on with Coastside.
Well, true. I mean, and also I just add, because you're very humble, that Jasmine also, before this project, was helping with the Junior Land Stewards Garden for an entire summer. So we had a garden that she was weeding and tending to years and years back, which happens quickly in life, before you were even in high school, I think. So yeah, this has been I know a place that you've really had a lot of experience, but also just have a lot of affinity for. So somebody's asking if who can participate in projects like this? Can people who are in different cities apply for the same project?
For the Youth Climate Ambassador program?
Yes,
actually, people from all over the Bay Area were in it. There were only like the 3 people I worked with were the only people from Half Moon Bay. So I think anyone from 9th to 11th grade can apply. And it doesn't matter, like just anywhere on the coast. So I think they had actually 3 different cohorts. So there was one like kind of on the like kind of Half Moon Bay area, and then there was one like I think there was a north one and like a south one maybe. I think but there were 3 different areas where like people were kind of from. So like even if you're not here, you're able to like get to the different places. So yeah.
So building on that, actually, so if people were interested in knowing, I mean, do you off the top of your head have other ones that you're remember, or can we get on to that website and look at the other projects that students are doing?
I think you can actually. Like there's on their website, you can see the different projects people have worked on. It's really cool. There's some awesome projects people did. Yeah, I think that
Link that. And oh, go ahead. Sorry, Jasmine.
yeah.
In our follow-up email, if that's perfect, because we'll link that so people can. I think it sounds like there's some interest for other students too. So if people are interested, we'll link that in the follow-up email for folks, and maybe we'll even put that on the YouTube so that people that are now just tuning into this on YouTube can see and link into other projects that are being done. Thank you. Was there anything? Oh, this is a good question. Was there anything you had to do to the soil at the restoration location to induce growth?
I watered the plants, but that's it. Like I didn't really do anything.
Well, that
So
I got so lucky with the rain too, right?
yeah, it was saved. I think it just saved me because the soil was so hard. It was like rock hard. So I think that was the only reason I was able to even plant there in the first place.
Did you have a plan before about the rain? Because you were close enough that you were able to bring water in.
Yeah.
Plan for how you were kind of the watering system before you were like figuring it out, like you're going to just feel and see, sort of respond to the needs of the site.
Yeah. Okay. I brought in water because I was like, the ground seems kind of hard. Like if maybe it will be helpful to have water. And then like it's like, ooh, it's actually really hard. And then it started raining. And so I was like, oh, maybe it's not the worst thing. So yeah.
I actually wanted to chime in that's actually something that we talked a lot about, Jasmine and I, about this, because the timing of a restoration being flexible, and she got lucky, but I was like, I think what was one of her kind of takeaways was that if you can be flexible enough to schedule and time around the forecast, when it's going to rain, it can really, the outcomes after all of that, because it's a lot of work that she put in, anybody does to a restoration. So it's a really valuable outcome of and lesson, kind of a takeaway from this project is kind of that value of kind of working with nature as much as possible, because we had a really bad rain season, right? It was so dry, but yet her plants did exceptionally well. And so I think that's an important takeaway that she demonstrated with this project. And and she did have a plan for the water, but it mattered just working with getting that rain at the right time. So.
When you're thinking, when you made reference to at the beginning, you were saying, there are non-native plants that might be able to have sort of to maximize the carbon sequestration, and that you were responding to the needs of the Coastside Land Trust in that space, saying these need to be native plants, they need to be plants that are, we're already seeing in this area. Do you have specific ones that you were thinking these are like ideas, either both of you or folks, the plants that do maximize carbon sequestration?
Honestly, I think that because I was working on Coastside Land Trust land, I thought it was more, I didn't really look into it as much. I'm sure there's plants that are technically better than some of the ones I used. But I think that in this case, I was like, you know what, I'm going with native plants. So we're just gonna go with the ones that are here. And I know that some of most of these are deep rooting, so they're good.
And actually, in terms of plants that, like very woody, like trees and shrubs, they would probably be better at sequestering carbon, but that wouldn't have achieved Coastside Land Trust goals out there to try to achieve, and create and increase like more coastal prairie type habitat that's suitable. And that's what the plants that she was using. So I think that it's that she was demonstrating this understanding of like, I have a goal, but there's a trade-off. You're balancing the landowner's needs, and and that's if you truly just wanted to sequester carbon, well, yes, maybe you just plant a bunch of trees, but that actually isn't what this landscape needs to, in terms of increasing biodiversity. So it's kind of a nuance that sometimes I think we tend to think in silos, like we were either restoring or we're doing this, and actually when you work on this landscape, you're balancing a lot of different interests and needs. And so that's what she was achieving with her project. It's pretty exciting. So.
Yeah, so many factors. So you have someone else who's asking, so what's next for this restoration project?
I think that I want to keep working on it. Honestly, like it would be really exciting to be able to make it bigger than it already is, because there's still space out there for more plants. I think that honestly, like I just want to keep being involved with like doing restorations in general and Coastside Land Trust in the future. It's really fun for me. So
And the method that you used, I think, is new to a lot of folks. That the cardboard with the mulch, that idea of keeping those. Just to talk to that, how successful was that for you using that cardboard?
Honestly, it was incredibly successful. Like, I think that like in the areas that I put cardboard on all of my plants, and there were basically no weeds around them. And doing like
covered with right after you solarized, but yeah, because that was a teasel grove, correct?
Yeah. So yeah, and I think that when I was working on the other restoration sites, what was the ones that are with the junior land stewards, there were so many weeds around all of the plants, and so it was really shocking actually to see there was basically nothing. I think that I have my irises especially, like you can see there's no weeds around like right next to them or anything, and it's really cool.
That's awesome. How did you come up with that idea?
Susan Boyer, actually, I talked to her a lot about the restorations when she doing the restoration, I think over the phone, and then when we were picking out the plants, and she had the idea. I think that they used it on a much bigger site and it worked well. And so she told me about it. She's like, this is what is probably going to work the best in this area. And it did. So it was a really, really helpful
suggestion. That on the coastal trail too. I'm wondering too, that connection with that they're using, you see the wood chips. So I'm wondering if she's using some of that cardboard. They're doing that along the coast, which would make a huge difference for that biodiversity on the coastal trail too. What a cool thing. Okay, so when you're thinking about yourself, we talked about this particular project, but when you think of yourself now, having been a part of this project, now you're part of this organization, and what do you see? How do you see yourself being a part of climate action in the future?
I think that I've always really wanted to do something relating to science as a career, and I think that this is a really good kind of starting point. So I think that I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do, but I think that it's definitely something that I definitely want to do something that helps the planet. So yeah.
Sounds like you've done such a wonderful job in as you're explaining this, of really adjusting to what the needs are, right? So for you, as long as you're sort of attuned to these ideas of what are the needs that I could be a part of, and yeah, what an awesome beginning. And you also share with us a little bit about the sort of last question that I have. Someone wants to show the cardboard again. Can you show the cardboard again? Will you show that one of your slides?
Yeah, I mean,
it's a cool practice. Yeah.
Let's see. Let me find the right slide. There we go. So here, so you can see I you kind of lay down cardboard, and then you just cut holes for where all the plants are. And then you cover all of that cardboard with mulch. So this whole site is covered completely in mulch now. You can kind of see it in this picture here, and the mulch kind of keeps the cardboard from blowing away and keeps the moisture in.
So sorry, so you're doing the hole first and then you're cutting, say that one more time.
So you cut the hole for the plant basically, and then we dug the holes after, basically we cut cardboard and then dug a hole right under the cardboard, and then put the plants in and then covered everything with mulch.
Okay. And then they said, oh, this person is asking, did you remove the cardboard afterwards?
Nope. Still there.
So last question, I think, let me see, unless something else pops up. Nope. Yes, there is. Did you have any gophers that were interested in your plan?
No, there were no, I don't think there were any gophers.
They're in our yard.
They are. There's a lot of, yeah.
Far from there. Yeah. That maybe that was one of your strategies, just to attract them to your yard. Get them. All right. Any last advice you give to students that are thinking about climate action, involvement in this type of project? Or
honestly, I'd just say like go for it. Like even if you don't get the same, like you don't get the result you're planning on, like it's so worth it to just try something because you're going to learn something from the process no matter what. And it's kind of fun. So, it's a really good experience to have. And it's just like really awesome to be part of it. So if you want to do something relating to like just taking action regarding climate change, I think the best thing is always just to do it, because if you don't, you'll never know if it would have worked or not.
Awesome. That's very sound advice. I hope this is inspiring to me, and I hope this is inspiring to those of you who are going to get to see this, whether it's in person or virtual now or at the recording, because it's wonderful to see your generation and the work that's being done. And this couldn't be a more critical time for this kind of thing to be done and to have this focus. So thank you so much, Jasmine, for sharing this with us. Thank you for those of you who are turning into this too, and if once you get it, you'll get an email with this recording. So please share this. Let's get more kids involved in this, or students involved in this. And I think those of us, if we're passing this kind of news along, people are inspired by action taken by others. So let's do this. Let's keep passing it along. So you will receive an email if you have registered for this, but also you can check us out. Just hop on our website, and we're on all social media. So Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, any of those things. You can come and take a look at what's coming up next. We'll have our recordings on there. You can always hop on our blog. And we often just have updates on things that are going on. There hasn't been a ton, of course, in person due to COVID, but but we've got a lot going on virtually, and we've just finished up the Junior Land Stewards virtual program. This webinar series has been incredible. Group of minds sharing incredible knowledge. So if you haven't gotten to see all of those, please go back, and on the website they're all recorded and they're all there for you to view, and they're great to, just put them on in your kitchen while you're doing some stuff. Just fill your brain with good stuff. And those of you who have donated, thank you. This is what keeps this all going, and you all know the value of that. And I also know that resources for all of us, they look different per family, but making the choice to support the Coastside Land Trust and all the good work that's being done there, it's certainly never lost on a sharing of resources. So thank you for those of you who have, and if you haven't, this might be a good time. And we have Jan Null is coming in June. He's going to be sharing about weather patterns of the coast. Should be very interesting. We've got a chance to talk with him for a very long time, and he is a wealth of knowledge. Very, very excited about that. We have Alvaro Jaramillo coming back in August to talk with us about raptors. We've got a couple of other things coming down the pike too. I'm not going to tell too much. You just have to keep hopping on our website and see what we got coming up. So thank you all for being here, and thank you, Jasmine. This is wonderful. Thank you, Sarah, for your support in this program.
Thank you, and just thank you, Jasmine. For this. I really wanted to just say how impressed I was, and I'm blown away. So just thank you to her, and thank you to CLT.
Thank you, Susie.
And yes, thank you. And Jasmine is ever part of the CLT community and will be forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. So thank you, and we will see the rest of you in just about a month. All right, bye.